Welcome back. This is Kimile, and you're listening to Heal with Kimile podcast. There is nothing more annoying to me than when I'm sitting in front of a married couple and I have got a spoiled brat in front of me as the wife. Men, look, they can be spoiled too. They can be, gaming and, playing, stupid things with their friends. Like they can be immature as well. But I don't know what, I think maybe it's just that this is what it is. So why it irks me the most is that I would say what I've witnessed in my practice is that women want the divorce. Women start the breakup of the family more often than men do. And that's just in my practice. There might be a statistic out there. I haven't looked into it. But I do think women tend to get bored. And I don't know, most of my men clients that I've worked with don't want to write a check for half of their, money and break up their family. And they're not invested in someone or something that, for years, just to end it and break it up. So I do think that in my practice, most the women want the divorce and they're the ones that start the process of divorce more than men. And I've seen that for years. But when I sit in front of someone who I'm going to call a spoiled brat, she doesn't work. She hasn't had to work. He takes care of everything. He makes good money. She's had 2 children with him. They've got a house. They've been together for almost 20 years. And she's bored and she's got all of her friends and they have wine night and they go out to dinners and they spend a lot of money on wine and he's not invited because he's not female. He doesn't care. That's fine. But I really find that there's a lot of good men out there that are inside of a relationship. And look, this girl's just not grateful. She's not grateful for what she's got. And there are a million girls that would trade places with her in a heartbeat. But I'm trying to get her to see that she's got it pretty good. But she gets flirted with and she's open and honest with it. She talks about it inside of the counseling sessions with her husband sitting next to her. And not that he's a wimp, but he's just not quite sure how to handle her or what to do with this. And I'm trying to figure out, how to help them stay together because they've got kids and they're coming to me to make it work. So that's kind of my job is to figure out how to strategically get them to communicate and recommit. And it isn't him that's not committed. He wants her happy. And this is what I find, that there's a handful of really good men and they want their women happy. They don't want to get divorced. They love their family, love their children, and they're scared that they're going to end up going through an ugly divorce and it's going to break up their family, of course. And they don't know how to make her happy and they don't want to fight with her. And if they say too much or call her on her crap, she's just going to leave. And that's what they're terrified of, is that they're going to, he's going to lose her. So that puts him in a pretty awkward position. Because if he's an alpha male and he needs to kind of maintain a little bit of control or, influence, I should say, over his relationship or his woman. And if he's lost influence over her, then the family's in trouble, is what I'd say. So how do you maintain influence over your relationship? You have to be willing to not tolerate crap. And when men get scared they're going to lose their wives, they become very tolerant, almost too tolerant. She's out till 2 or 3 in the morning. She's at a bar. She's like, there's just things that these women are doing that really isn't marriage type behavior. They kind of seem like single women. They're acting like they're single is what I would say. But he doesn't want to say anything to her because if she's, got a number in her pocket or something from coming home from a bar, again, he doesn't want to lose her. So he starts tolerating inappropriate behavior. That's your first mistake. It's kind of like, and maybe this is a bad analogy, but I'm going to say it. So I tell women, if your dog pees on the rug, what do? Well, you don't, step over it. You clean it up. You maybe rub their nose in it. Bad dog, you put him outside. There has to be an immediate reaction to bad behavior. And you don't step over it and make it be okay for a year or two because it's just going to get worse. And then they're going to take more and more advantage of you. So in this situation that I'm dealing with this young couple, they have 2 young kids. Again, they're almost 20 years together. And the woman is definitely bordering on, flirting with an affair is what I call it. And I told her, I said, honey, you're drinking, you're out with your girls, you're at clubs and stuff, you're getting hit on, you like it. You're kind of getting close to having an affair. Oh, no, I'm just having fun. I got married right when I was 20. And, there's always this justification because she doesn't want to give it up. She doesn't want to, she doesn't want to quit having fun. This is all fun to her. But the kids are not going to do well. It's just better to have a family, to raise your children inside of. She doesn't realize what she's about ready to lose. So what I try to say to her is, you're kind of being a brat and you're really worried about you right now, not your kids. You're being selfish and you're putting your husband through a lot because you want to have a good time. What is going to happen if you get divorced? How does your lifestyle change if you get divorced? A lot of women this age, they don't think about that. They've never really had to work. They haven't had to pay bills. Again, if you've got a good man, he's taking care of you. He's protecting, he's providing, right or wrong. That's just what this guy's doing. And then he loves her. He loves his kids and he wants her home with the kids. And so far, she's been a pretty good mom. But now she's just got this little thing going on. And I find that if there's a little bit of flirting and stuff, she's not telling him everything because she doesn't want to get in trouble. She doesn't want to stop it. People that have secrets they don't want to get rid of, they don't fully disclose. Because if they fully disclose, well, maybe they have to give it up to save the relationship, which is, I would agree. So she's definitely flirting with some men, inappropriate. It drives him crazy. He doesn't want to get angry or violent or go, arm wrestle these guys. It's really about what does she really want. So my coaching to both of them was this: try on separation. Just try it on. Run to what you're avoiding the most. You don't want a divorce. You don't want to get separated. You're trying to keep it all together. I got it. But is this sustainable? He's just white knuckling it and it's driving him crazy. And I just told him, I said, look, I would ask her to leave. She needs to stay in an apartment or, somewhere else, not with a guy, but maybe with her mother or something, to realize what it's going to feel like when she's outside of your protection in your home. So they try on a separation and I say no contact. For 7 days, 7 to 10 days, no contact. And I want them both to keep a journal. And so as they journal about their day, are their feelings coming up? What's going on inside of them? Do they miss each other? When do they start missing each other? Usually people, when they get split up like that, their guilt surfaces. The things that they should have done. Oh gosh, if this is really over, woulda, coulda, shoulda. There's all that remorse that starts surfacing when you're not with your partner, even for a few days. Because if the end is coming, if it's going to end, really you're confronted with your bad behavior or your results. And now when you're alone and you don't have them consistently in your day-to-day life, you start feeling things that you haven't felt before. So sometimes this kind of wakes the couple up because you have to take away what's so autopilot. And sometimes I have the husband leave and she's there with the kids full time without him. He's at a buddy's house. The separation is a safe space, meaning he's in this place without any other relationships. Same with her. We do it in the confinement of an agreement. No money changes. Everything stays the same. We aren't going to use it to take advantage of each other if we go through a divorce. So they sign an agreement, nothing changes, and they stay in a place where there's no third-party issues. But sometimes if the men leave and then she's at home with the kids full-time and he doesn't come over or come home at night to take the burden off, he's going to do the schedule that is standard, which is every other weekend, one night a week, no overnights if it's a baby. So he starts doing the schedule with her, and I try and do this for 2 weeks for her to realize what it's going to look like, feel like, seem like when he's not there. Now, this is pretty productive. I would say I've seen a lot of good, productive emotions out of people. They start realizing that maybe they're being selfish and they need a break. They need to change. They need to work on themselves. Because what I think is really going on with people that want to change it up a little bit is they're going through a little midlife crisis, a senior life crisis, call it whatever you want. That stuff's real. They've been married for almost 20 years, and so they just don't know themselves anymore. They're trying to graduate a version of themselves. And sometimes that's sort of escapism. But once your behavior changes or your partner's behavior changes, you've got to stop the autopilot action and deal with what's going on, or it's just going to get worse. And then there is an affair or there is an addiction or, then there is going to end up being a divorce because you haven't stopped to really treat and deal with the change that's needed. I tell couples that I think therapy is good for all couples, but it's more of a inquiry kind of thing. And I've got a list of questions that I ask married people or people that are in long-term committed relationships to ask each other. Would you pick me again? Is this something that you have grown from? Are you happy in this relationship? Who do you feel like I see you as in this relationship? Because really, what is a relationship? Why are we in these long-term relationships besides just raising children and stuff? It's a person that witnesses who we are. Your spouse is the witness to your life, to you. They're supposed to know you better than anybody else knows you. So this is someone who will speak about you while you're alive, when you pass, a witness to the children and to the community and family. This person knows you, or they say they do, right? And so you really want to be with a person that witnesses the truth about you, the authenticity about you. And as you age and grow, you're supposed to be able to be as authentic and vulnerable with each other as possible because that person loves you. If you feel like you have to perform or look good all the time, you can't really say that because it's going to change how they see you. Are you really able to be yourself inside that relationship? And this is what I'm finding with a lot of couples that are together for a long time and they really don't want a divorce because there's nothing really to get divorced over. It's just they're bored or their friends are taking them out, they're having a good time and they want to keep doing that. They've missed that part of themselves. They got too quickly inside of this relationship. So this has been productive for them to have a good time. And I'm all for a good time as long as it's not putting the relationship, the family at risk. It's really putting the family at risk. I also think couples need to reconvene on subjects. So is her not working still a good thing in this family? Is she needing to get a position, a job, do something outside of the home, whether she's making money or not? Is there something that can be more productive for her that would give her fulfillment? And so you look at the dynamic going on in the relationship and you just want to, constantly take the temperature of how things are going, how people are expressing or not expressing themselves. And you've got to listen. You've got to really listen and validate each other because over time that infatuation leaves and maybe the sex appeal goes away. So what is left? Usually it is love. It's acceptance. It's someone who calls you on your stuff. That is love, by the way, because they care enough to do so. It isn't all just about romance and, having a good time. It has to settle into some boring days and there's stability and we kind of are suffering well together. And not that marriage should be suffering all the time, but sometimes you do suffer inside of a marriage. Life is sometimes suffering. And if you can't suffer well, you're probably not going to be a good partner for anybody. So there's always an introspection. And I always ask people, when they come in and start fighting in front of me, I say to them, okay, hold on. You can do this at home. So if you're going to fight in front of me, I will say, when you complain about her or you complain about him, how are you getting him to do that? How are you getting her to do that? So I will put it back on you. So if he stonewalls, he doesn't talk to me, he doesn't want to sit next to me, he's always mad. Well, how are you getting him to be that way? How are you getting him to feel that? Well, I do complain, I do nag, I do, criticize him. Okay, well, that might have him stonewall you. He doesn't want to be vulnerable or intimate with you because he's mad at you. She won't let me touch her. She's so defiant. She avoids me. Well, how do you get her to do that? Well, I'm usually late. I don't eat dinner with her. Like there's always things that we're doing that can help the partnership fail. And so I force each person to kind of look at what is it you're doing to cause this? It's not happening in a vacuum. You're the common denominator too. And it does take two people. And I'll tell you who gets better inside of therapy is people that can really be honest and tell the truth about themselves and own their half of the equation or even own all of it. I've got some people that can be fully accountable and say, this is all on me and I'm going to work on it. But I will tell you the most selfish thing to do is to cheat in a relationship. We know why people cheat. Of course, we know why people cheat. It feels good and it's infatuating and I feel alive again. I mean, I can't tell you how many times I've heard that. I feel like I was a teenager again. Yeah, because you're doing something risky and you're taking liberties you shouldn't be taking. So we know why people cheat. It's because it makes them feel a certain way. And it's a rush, it's a high. But is it real? No. That's not love. This isn't real. The real question asked is, why don't you cheat? Why wouldn't you cheat, right? And maybe you wouldn't cheat because you love your partner. Maybe you wouldn't cheat because you don't want to have the world see you that way. You don't want to feel weak for another person. That's not the answer to your problems, is to just run off to be with somebody else. That's the real question to ask is, why not? Why wouldn't you cheat? And that really shows the level of commitment and integrity in their own character, right? It's really, really hard to come back from a cheat. It's possible. I've helped a handful of couples do it, and they're still together. But it is really, really hard. I think the motivation or the why for cheating is critical to know why. A handful of men that I know that have cheated, and I say cheating, they look at porn or they're, flirting with women online, looking at OnlyFans, something like that. It's still a form of cheating, whether they had carnal knowledge or not. Okay. But it is easier to come back from that kind of cheat instead of carnal knowledge. If there's a physical connection, really, really hard to come back from that. If it's, anonymous, paid for, happy endings, massage, whatever, easier to come back from an emotional and sexual affair. I think the emotional piece of it for women is harder to feel like they've lost their man to the influence of another woman. And same thing for a guy to feel like they've lost she gave herself to somebody else and trusted him more than him. So there's different reasons why it can't come back. But if there is a health crisis, like I've seen people that have gone through some massive health scare, and they just wanted to feel that feeling again or whatever. It's kind of like a reaction to a trauma. So they can't imagine, their pecker never working again or something like that. Or it stops working as well or altogether, and they're trying to sort that out. So I've got to look at this, or I've got to talk to that girl. I want to see if it's my wife. I want to see if it's her, or if I can get it back. So they'll put themselves in risky situations to see if that their physical comes back. I've got one client who lives out of the state, but she's a doctor. She does very well. She loves her husband. He's been out of work. He's going through cancer and heart failure. He's got a lot going on with his health. And he's never really worked. And so financially, he's relied upon her. And she's been fine with that. She loves him. They have no children. But he is not looking good. He used to be really good looking, and that's probably why she didn't care if he worked, because he's a beautiful man. And with the cancer treatments and the heart condition, the water retention, he's balding, he's gained some weight. Like, he doesn't know himself anymore. And since the cancer treatments, he's really gone off the rails. And she's just bewildered. She's there by his side. She loves him. She doesn't care. She doesn't want to lose him. She wants to have him as long as she can. But he literally is doing everything he can to get her to not trust him, not want him. I kind of wonder if on some level he feels like, he's going to leave her and wants her to get tough without him. Maybe I'm being too generous with that. But he's literally been cheating on her and doing risky behavior, taking drugs, like just really going off the reservation here, like just truly not being his word at all. He moved out for a little bit. I think he had somebody, maybe he was going to try on a relationship. But younger girl, she doesn't want to be a nurse to him. And here's this loving wife doting on him. And she asked me what she should do. I said, look, let him go. Let him move out. Let him, secure your finances, which she has. She does all the money anyway. But I said, just let him go. Let him go and try that out. And if you really love him, try not to personalize it, because I don't think it really is about her. Obviously, it's about him facing his mortality. And he always got by on his looks. He never really had to do anything else. Frankly, he was that good looking. Well, now he doesn't have that anymore. So he does not have an ego. You can't have an ego. And he is sick and he does need treatments. But I said, I wouldn't divorce him. I wouldn't do anything to add to the stress of what you're already going through. But I said, I'd secure your belongings. I wouldn't let him take things out of the house, make sure he doesn't steal from you. But I said, let him go. Just let him go. So he did. He left, got an apartment for a little bit, and now slowly he's kind of wanting to come back. And of course she's going to take him back. But I said, you've got to drop all expectations. This is not who you don't know him anymore. He's not who he used to be. You're not for him who you used to be. So I said, this relationship now is end of life matters, and you're going to do your best to not let him make you go crazy and take him to treatments, make him comfortable. But I said, don't fight with him. The fight is just, he wants to critique her. That's the guilt. These people that do these kind of things, they feel guilty. And then they try and take it out on you. So I just told her, I said, let him go. And he's kind of coming back around. He needs her and he doesn't want to need her. So he's dealing with his own stuff, right? He's like a defiant teenager. And those are the worst. Those are the hardest men to kind of deal with. Okay, I kind of started out with another couple. So hopefully you're tracking a little bit. But what I want you to understand is that relationships evolve and change. And there's got to be new terms, new agreements, new ways of dealing with each other as you go through the years. And it isn't easy. It's not always easy. You can come back from cheating. You can come back for some of this stuff. If the behavior changes, if people really are seeking to connect again, but it takes two. So if you're going through any of this stuff and you want to sit and talk to me, if you've got a relationship you want to work through some issues with, I'm pretty good at that. You should call me or email me from my website. at healwithkimile.com, HEAL with KIMILE.com. Thanks for listening. Bye now.